Hey guys, so I've recently had some people ask about some long exposure photography, specifically targeted at waterfalls. So I'm gonna do a quick video just showing you how I go about shooting some waterfalls. And I got a little guy here, so it'll show you everything you need to know, but it applies to all sizes of waterfalls. That doesn't really matter. But I got my little setup here. Got my camera, got my waterfall. I'm gonna sit you down right here. So I only brought one tripod because I didn't really plan on doing this video today, but I'm just gonna go through and show you some different things that are probably necessary to know. So the first picture I'm gonna take, and I'm gonna put all these pictures up here on the screen as we go through just so you can see the difference. But I'm gonna take on my minimum ISO, so I'm gonna take it on 100 ISO, and I'm gonna drop my shutter speed to where it looks like it's relatively exposed. And I'm not gonna edit any of these photos. So the ones you're seeing right here are gonna be all completely unedited, just so you have frame of reference. Before I get too far into this, I will say that the things that are pretty non-negotiable with having for this kind of photography is a tripod and an ND filter. This camera in particular, I can set up my phone to act as a trigger, which I'll talk about in a minute. But if your camera doesn't, then getting a remote to do that might be something that benefits you. But let's jump into it and we'll talk through that as we go. So the first photo I'm gonna take, I'm gonna put all these on a 2-second timer so that it doesn't. The reason you put it on a 2-second timer is so that the press of your finger doesn't introduce any shake to the camera, which would introduce shake to your image. So you give it a press, let it go, it settles, and it takes the picture. So for that particular photo, it was 1/30 at 2.8 and 100 ISO. So I went a lot longer than that, right? So the best way to do it, right, would be to scroll up and take a photo with a longer shutter speed. To do that, I have to bump my aperture up as well. So here's a 1/2 second picture on f8 at 100 ISO. Let it go and take. So this is what you're looking at. Again, that's not exposed, or that's not edited at all. You can see the water is a little bit more of a line, a little more silky look than, you know, if you're to take a fast picture. At the end of this video, I'm gonna zoom in on the water specifically for all of these photos and put them side by side, just, you know, across the screen so you can compare and see what your preference is. But both of those photos so far were with my ND filter at the absolute minimum. So now I'm gonna bounce that up and take a few photos and see if I can get my exposure time up a little bit. All right. So for this particular one, it's gonna be a 30-second exposure on f8 and at 100 ISO. I try to keep my ISO as low as possible because ISO introduces a lot of noise in your shadows and just in your picture in general. So I try to keep that at minimum as possible. Every once in a while you have to bump it up, but that kind of depends. But here is a 30-second exposure on f8. And we'll fast forward through this so you don't have to watch the whole thing. All right, cool. And then that is what this picture looks like. And that's what that picture looks like straight out of camera. So I do notice something in camera that I'm gonna zoom in as well, and I'll put it up on the camera here, or on the screen here. But if you zoom in real close to this water, and one of the main reasons that people do long exposure photography is you can see the little bit of a swirl from the bubbles that are kind of going around in there. and it just makes the water look a lot cooler than it normally does, in my opinion. So what you could also do with this is you can bump up your f-stop if you need to, right? Your aperture can go up as high as you want. I personally try not to go over f9, maybe f11, because the higher you go, it can cause what's called refraction, which if you want to know what that is, or if you want a video on that, just let me know. But I'm not going to bore you with all the details now. But it can essentially just introduce some different bits to your photos. So I try to keep it as low as I can and use as dark of a ND filter as I can. That way I can play around with that a lot more. During the day, you have to have a lot stronger of an ND filter to do these kind of photos. Obviously at night, when there's less light, you don't need as much, but it can still help. And depending on the look you're going for, you might not need an ND filter, you might need a really strong ND filter, you might need something in between. So just kind of playing around with the different NDs and different looks that you're going for is really the only way to figure this out. So I hope that made sense. So we'll start with 1/200 of a second. Over here will be 1/20 or 30 of a second, whichever it was. And then we'll do half a second over there, half a second over here, and then the 30 seconds on the far side. So you can just kind of see what they look like. But if you have any more questions, make sure you drop them in the comments so I can get back to you as quick as possible. And if this video helped you, I'd appreciate it if you smash that subscribe button. Hold on, let's do it over here. Smash that subscribe button. Hopefully that was helpful. I hope to see you next time. But until then, I appreciate you. Peace.